Welcome back to Teacher Class, and this is a discussion for your test number 1A, Reproduction in Plants. So before I start discussing it, please let me remind you that first thing, please kindly do correction using a green pen, and second is please let your parents or guardians to sign this test. Okay, let's look at our first questions here. So the first question here says that Daniel observed that a flower on the plant had turned into a fruit. He then made the following conclusion. The first, fertilization have taken place in the flower. Was it correct? Yes. Fertilization must be taken place so that the flower will turn into fruit. So this is correct. The next one, the oval of the flower had developed into a fruit, whereas the ovary of the flower have developed into a seed. Is that correct? The answer is no. Why? Because oval is the one that becoming what? Seeds. And ovary is the one become the fruit. So B and C is wrong. That's why the answer for question number 1 is option number 1. Okay, let's move on. 2. Raja conducted an experiment using 2 insect pollinated flowers, P and Q, from the same plant. The diagram shows the parts of one flower. Now, what happened is the question continues to say that he removed a part from flower P and another part from flower Q, and he recorded his observation of the development of the flower over time. Now, what happened to P is that it develops into a fruit, and Q, it does not develops into a fruit. So with this, I can actually understand that if this develops into a fruit, means that the part that I remove, I should say Raja remove, does not affect, does not affect, okay, the fertilization, whereas this affect, okay, means that P does not affect, but Q actually affects the development of the flower. So with that, what you are supposed to do is to check which part that actually, if you remove it, does not affect. I mean, you should actually straight away look at here, A, B, C, D. You should know that the anther, which is this one, if it's removed, it doesn't affect. Why anther remove it doesn't affect? It produces pollen grains, and it seems very, very important. It's because you not necessary to have your own self use your own anther, but you can use others' anthers to produce pollen grain and go into. So I know that P does not affect, which is B. How about A? A is important, C is important, D is also important. So we know that B here. Then let's check, is D very important that will affect the developments of into a fruit? The answer is yes, of course, the ovary. That's why the answer here will be option number 4. Let's move on to question number 3. And here says that the table below shows the characteristics of two plants X and Y. So plant X, first characteristic is it reproduced by seeds and is dispersed by wind. The words, when you see the word reproduced by seed, you know that this is something called the flowering plant. Okay, it's a flowering plant. Okay, and it dispersed by wind. So let's look at X. X is flowering or not flowering? Flowering for sure. And it's dispersed by wind. That's why each supposed to have a wing-like structure. So I know that X is actually P. Now the next one, Y, it reproduced by seeds, and here is a cross, means that this is a non-flowering plant, and it is dispersed by wind. So as you can see, non-flowering plant, and because it has spores, that's why it will disperse by wind. So you can see this is R. So I know this is R. So X, Y, it will be P and R. So I can see this will be number 2. So the answer for this question is option number 2. Let's move on to question number 4. Here says that the diagram shows seed dispersal patterns of plant A, B, and C. A, B, and C. So let's look at A. A is this, the parent, the young will be here. So it'll be here. Then as you can see, seems like it's scattered around what? Along the river, right? So if it's scattered along the river, I know this is dispersed by what? Water. And when it's dispersed by water, the fruit or the seed must have these two very important key characteristics. First, it must have something called the fibrous husk to trap air, and it must have a waterproof outer covering, outer covering, so that the water will not go inside, and it will, with these two characteristics, it will help to let the fruit or the seed to stay afloat. So let's look at here. Which one actually have fibrous husk? Plant A, as you can see, is the option number 2, right? So I know that it's actually answer is option number 2 already. But just in case, let's just quickly check, okay? B star, as you can see, is here. I mean, star, as you can see, is the young plant is around. So I know this is splitting. I know this is splitting. And if it's splitting, the characteristic is first, it can have like pot-like structure. Or another one is what? Another one is a line of thickness. Okay, this is all the things we have learned in class in our notes. Okay, so the last one, what is the last one? The last one, according to here, as you can see, is a triangle. And this triangle is like here, 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 here. Is kind of random, right? Because it go here, 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 here. So I know that this is probably by what? By animals. Okay, and animals, it can have two ways. It can be like the animals eating or the hooks. Okay, edible fruits or the hooks. So I know that I have here hooks. So I know this answer is option number 2. Okay. Now let's look at the next one. Question 5. The squirrels store a large number of nuts during winter, and the squirrels often eat the nuts halfway because the bottom part of the nut tastes bitter. Okay, as the winter turns to spring, these half-eaten nuts can still germinate and grow into young plant. So, which are the possible reasons why the half-eaten nuts still can germinate and grow into young plant? So, I mean, a very important point is that the conditions for germination, WOW, and see, they receive light to germinate. Now, is light a necessary requirements for the seed to germinate? The answer is no, right? As we know, is WOW. The next one, there is food store for the young plant. Now, there is food store for the young plant. This sounds very interesting. What do I mean by fruit store for the young plant? Just remember that when there's a kind of seed, right? Just remember there's a seed that lives inside. Okay? And that basically is kind of the energy food, the food store. Because they can't make their own food because they don't have leaves, right, to trap light to make their own food. That's why there's a food store inside. The next one, the baby plant is found at the bottom of each nut. Okay, that's acceptable. If it's on top, then it's eaten means die already, right? Okay. And next, D, there is a warm for germination when winter turns to spring. Can you see here? Winter turns to spring. Okay, still can germinate again because there's a warm coming in. That's why question 5, the answer is option B, C, and D, which is option number 3. Let's move on. The diagram shows the life cycle of a flowering plant. So as you can see, adult plant go to seed, seed go to young plant. So from adult plant to seed, what happens here? Okay, this is what we need to find out. And from seed to young plant, what happens here? So adult to seed. Again, when there's adult plant, means that you have actually flower like this, right? Adult plant. Then becomes seed. What actually happens in between? So you must first understand that there should be a pollination happen. And when pollination happens, then fertilization happens. Then this flower turn into a fruit. And when there's fruit, there is seed inside. So I know that it's supposed to have pollination and fertilization happens. Okay, I mean, we can know the answer is option number 3 already lah. But let's continue and see. Seeds. When it seeds, what happened? It will go through what? Dispersal. And when they go to a place and it will start germinating. Correct? And that's why it's dispersal and germination. Option number 3. Okay, by the way, this is a very common question, so you should know this question. Okay, let's move on to question 7. The diagram shows 4 different stages of growth of a bean plant. The graph shows the changes in mass of a seed leaves as the plants grow. So again, just now we just discussed about what's the usage of seed leaves. It's actually to provide food or nutrient, or basically that is actually the food stored inside here so that the plants actually can get it. Why? Because there is still no true leaves to trap light to make food. And that's why with that function, as you can see that it will, and if you remember lah, it will go actually shrink and later on fall. So you know that basically it actually slowly the food is being used up, and that's why it shrink and fall. With that, I mean, it's kind of easy to guess what is a mass, right? It should be dropping, right? Because we have been getting food, it will go and shrink and fall. So the graph should be supposed to be going down. That's why it will be, which one? I mean, it's very obvious that it will be graph number C, which is option number 3. Okay, that is basically what happened to the seed. Okay, let's move on to section B, which is the open-ended questions. So study the two flowers X and Y as shown in the diagram. And now we need to identify the methods of pollination for X and Y. So X and Y, actually, if you have studied well enough, you should know this. We have been discussing this in class before. X is supposed to be wind pollinated. So wind pollinated is supposed to be X, and Y is supposed to be insect pollinated. Why X is in wind pollinated? How do we identify? That's very easy. As we can see from here, the anther and the stigma is sticking outside of the petals. That's why it's easy to be carried by the wind when it produces the pollen grains, and the stigma is easy to gather. Okay, and you can see this with large surface. Now, how about Y? And that is basically the B question. State the two characteristics of flower Y that enable the flower to be pollinated by the method identified in part A. So as you know, there are two things that is very obvious. First is about the nectar. So it's around here actually. Okay. So first nectar. So flower X, flower Y, sorry, flower Y has sweet and smell nectar. Why? This is to attract the pollinator to come in. Okay. Next one is flower Y has large and colorful petals. Again, why do they need these flower large and colorful petals? It's again to attract the pollinator to come in because they are insect pollinated. Okay. So now C. What does part P develop into after fertilization? So part P is, if you look carefully, let me just quickly erase this. It's basically referring to the ovary. So what does the ovary develop into after fertilization? Part P will develop into what? Into a fruit after fertilization. So remember, ovary, it is actually developed into fruit, and oval is developed into seed. Let's look at the next question. Question number 9. Question number 9 here says that Andy studied the positions of two different types of plant, X and Y, in field A. So X, as you can see, it is like around, and Y is actually kind of like like this. Yeah. Okay. So A9A1. Plant Y would grow healthily than plant X. Explain why this was so based on the diagram above. So why would you say that Y will grow more healthily? So first you understand that because it is scattered further away from the parent plant, but plant X is around, okay? And because of that, they are competing for what? They are competing for space, water, light, and mineral salts. So how will we explain this? We can explain this as plant Y is young. Young basically means the young plants are scattered further away while plant X young are scattered all together. What does this causing? This causes, or you say causing them to compete. Compete for what? For space, water, light, and mineral salts. Okay, something again that we have learned a lot. Okay, let's move on and here say that the diagram shows the fruit of plant X and Y. Plant X and Y. So as we can see, X is gathered around. So this is probably splitting or explosive action, right? As you can see, the seeds is line of weakness, that's pot-like structure. This is X. So if this is X, this is Y. And Y, if I look carefully, seems like a wing-like structure that actually is through wind dispersal. But interestingly, like if you look carefully here, this dispersal pattern doesn't really seems very like wind, because here also didn't describe what is a wind direction. So it's quite interesting that this question is given in such way lah. Okay, so I feel like this is something a bit weird when it comes to the diagram, but it's okay, we accept it. So which fruit P or Q is the fruit of plant X? So we know it's actually fruit Q. Fruit Q, its dispersing method is by splitting, or you want to use the word explosive action that works well too. Thus, plant X young basically means young plants are nearer or nearer. Okay, so let's continue and move on. B here say that there were two more fields, B and C. Okay, B here and C here. As shown below, at the beginning, field B had plants and animals, but field C had no plants and animals. So this one have plants plus animals, and plant C there's nothing there. Okay, a few years later, field C started to have plants. Here have plants too. Now, here the question says describe two ways through which field C has started to have plants. Why? At first there's no plants at all, but suddenly there are plants there. So what methods that actually able to works there? So let's try it right there. Plants in field C can be either dispersed by, if animal is can't travel, right? So again, what will matter with an animal? Water, wind, splitting, or explosive action. Animals can't travel there, right? Water, that works, right? Water, right? So you just go that way. Works well. Wind, can, right? Can travel, right? Splitting, no, right? They can't go too far. So it will probably by wind or by water. Okay. So plants in field C can be either dispersed by water or dispersed by wind. That's all. Water or wind. Let's move on to the next question. Diagram. Question 10. The diagrams below shows fruit W, X, Y, Z which have been cut open. Classify the fruits W, X, Y, Z based on the numbers of ovules their flowers have in the classification chart below. So again, you must understand this ovule will develop into what after fertilization? Develop into seeds. So it is very, very easy to identify whether it has one ovule or one seed or more seeds based on the ovule. So here's a 1. As we can see, X is the rambutan, we have 1. Y, no, Z avocado, yes. They have many, I think W works and is very obvious. How about Y? Durian. Yeah, many also. So we know it's X, Z, W, Y or X, Z, W, Y. Okay. Now, here he asking state one advantage of having many ovules. Why having more is good sometimes? Why? I mean, actually, it's kind of obvious, right? When you have more ovals, you have more seeds. And when you have more seeds, when it disperses, means that when there's more in a way that your own uh, child can actually grow, right? And it increase the heredity, like what kind of increase the chance of survival of your own young lah, okay? So how do we write this? So let me just write this as so that the flower can develop more seeds. Thus, there is a higher chance so this is E. Let me just rewrite this. Higher chance for the plant to germinate. Then later when they grow, then you reproduce. So basically you have more children, your next generation will be more, okay? Higher chance lah, okay? So let's move on to C. In the space given below, mark with 5 crosses X to show where the young plant of fruit W will most likely be after it is being dispersed. So this is the parent plant of W. So what is W? W, let's look at here, is this. So now by looking at this, we need to try to identify this is dispersed by what method. So I mean, this is kind of easy to guess lah. Okay, this has the pot-like structure. So this is basically splitting or explosive action. And how do the dispersal pattern looks like? It will be like around, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that works well. Okay, that will be the answer for this question. Let's look at the last one. The diagram below shows the different stages of growth of a green bean plant. Arrange the growth of the green bean seeds in the correct order by filling in the letters A, C, D in the diagram below. So it starts with B. Then which one is next? So before that, let's just revise. Germination starts with the seed. Then you have the seed coat, you bricks. Then the root will come first. Then the shoot. Then later on the first true leaves. So it'll be B. Then it'll be D. It'll be A. It'll be C. I mean, if you don't know the steps like the root, then shoot, then the first true leaves, I think by looking at the height, you also can somehow guess lah. Okay. But this is something that you must know, very important. Root, shoot, then first true leaves. So now here the questions continue says that Gina planted the green bean seed in a pot of soil. Let me just highlight this. In a pot of soil, in a black box. The surrounding temperature was 28 degrees Celsius, but the seed did not germinate. So interestingly, it did not germinate. So now let's try to write down what's the conditions for germination. W, O, W. W stands for what? water, oxygen, and warm. So if you look carefully in this statement, it's placed in a black box now. It doesn't use the word seal. Okay, it means that oxygen is available. Means again, it say a black box means that oxygen is available. It doesn't say the word seal. Seal means that it's totally no oxygen, no air can enter. And the temperature is what? 28 degrees Celsius. So, you have warmer. So what is not being mentioned here is what? It's actually the water. The water is not being mentioned. No, no, no. A lot of you probably will be tricked by the word black. Then you say, oh, there's no light. You're supposed to put it under the sun. Da, 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 da. This will enable the seed to germinate. And it's very, very tricky that a lot of people write this. Why? Because of the word black. And you feel, oh, it needs light. But again, WOW, the seed, in order for seeds to germinate, light is not required. Yes, if it has it, it's good. Without it, it's also fine. Okay? But here, what is not being mentioned is the word water. So suggest what one change you can say we must water the plants or water the seeds daily, or you can just say pour water on the seed daily. Okay? Then you say why? Explain your answer. This is because seeds need water to germinate. That's all. So yes, that's all for this question. And basically we are done for the test. So just want to give you a quick reminder for all of you, please make sure that you study these topics well. It's a very interesting topic and it's a kind of easy, it's not hard. So please make sure you study this topic well so that you can do your best in your next exam or basically for your knowledge. Okay. So a reminder also, please make sure you do correction using green pen. Even though your answer is right, but if you feel that my answer is more structured and more nice, please also kindly write this down because the methods of answering, method of writing, it will be very helpful also when you're doing in the mini exam or final exam. Okay. And also just a reminder also, please give it to your parents or guardians to sign after you have done your correction. Okay. Make sure you let them know that you have learned something even though you are wrong. Okay. That's all from my side and I hope you learned something. Thank you. See you. Bye bye.